Welcome, everyone, to our session this afternoon on Subnational Climate Trailblazers call for national support to accelerate climate action. My name is Alyssa Chanot. I'm from the ICLEI World Secretariat in Bonn, and I will be doing introduction remarks around ICLEI before we open it up to a panel facilitated by Rohit on our renewable energies team. Thank you all for being here today. Next slide, please. We wanted to share a little bit about ICLEI. We're founded in 1990. We're the longest standing, largest, globally recognized and respected network that guides and steers local and regional subnational governments worldwide under this main banner of working towards enhanced sustainable urban development. This is a map of our global network. We have 24 offices on every continent, from coast to coast, across the oceans, working together with our World Secretariat and regional offices. We're able to really accelerate global action together. Our total members are totaling over 2,500. Regional and local governments. We're active in over 125 countries. And with our staff across these regional offices, we have technical expertise across the gamut of sustainability with over 600 experts in over 24 offices across the world. So a little bit about our approach for how we focus and try to handle this big, hairy problem that is sustainability. We take a 5-pathway approach. The key here is that they're all integrated. It's a holistic approach where we work across sectors, across jurisdictions to work in a holistic and integrated way to accelerate climate change. So our pathways, as you can see here, are low emissions, nature-based, equitable, and people-centered, resilient development, as well as circular development. We're always looking at how we can integrate these things across all of these areas to make the most impact possible. This is just a sampling of our expertise as an organization, but a real true thread that goes along all of our work is around the just transition. Whether it be mitigation, adaptation, circularity, mobility, all these areas that fall within our pathway framework, we look at how at-risk populations are most affected and making sure that they have seats at the table to make sure they're not more negatively impacted by the work we do. And we're lucky to receive funding from BMZ within the German Federal Ministry for some of this work. And of course, we can't do this work alone. Of course, we have our ICLEI initiatives, some mentioned here at the top, but we also work in coalition with many partners, CDP ICLEI Track for tracking around metrics to make sure that we have transparency with our local, regional, national governments, the Global Covenant of Mayors, NDC Partnership, MCR 2030, as well as here we are at COP28. We have lots of collaboration with the UNFCCC, especially with the races, and most recently with the Surge initiative that was launched here at COP27 last year. So I'm coming from the climate action team at the World Secretariat. And what we have at the World Secretariat is bringing together our technical expertise at the World Secretariat as well as regional offices, where we have a Green Climate Cities program where we focus on analyzing our challenges, acting decisively, and accelerating action to really tackle this problem around the climate emergency. So here's a little bit about our kind of landmark Green Climate Cities program. We use resilience, mitigation, and adaptation as the entry point into this nonlinear process where we look at analyzing, acting, and accelerating action quickly in an iterative and dynamic way, meeting cities where they're at to ensure any region, no matter your size, any locality, no matter your size, we're able to meet your needs and meet you where you're currently at in your task to tackle the climate emergency. And for us, when we're looking at it from a climate neutrality perspective, we're looking at drastically reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We're looking at 2 more areas as well. Okay. And then a little bit more about our Green Climate Cities program. We focus on the analysis, which is looking at the data, starting at that to really problem identify and really create some parameters about what we're trying to do. Then we're looking to accelerate that action from a local level with inputs from diverse stakeholders. And then on the back end, at the very end, we're looking at putting all of this data in a measurable, consistent way year after year with our ICLEI CDP tracking, which we do on a yearly basis, and really provide that technical support to cities and regions to make that as easy as a process as possible. So one of our aspects within our Carbon Center is the 100% renewable cities and regions projects. Rohit Sen is our lead of that team, and he'll share a little bit more about the work that we're doing and the coalitions that we're involved in. But it's focused on, within this chart, focusing on the very different ways that we have emissions around mitigation, lowering emissions with our ultimate goal of getting to net zero. So we wanted to share about, since the Paris Agreement, what are some landmark things that we can hang our hat on as a city network, as what we're doing here today is celebrating our key members within our network. We've really been on the front lines as cities, locals, and regional governments in this climate emergency response since 2015. At the 2015 Climate COP, we launched our TAP, Transformative Actions Program, which is the world's first climate finance project preparation facility. And you'll see some of the statistics about some of the goals that we've met during that time, number of projects funded, number of countries involved with, billions of euros in circulation, 35 projects that we've been able to fund during that time. Then for some city accomplishments, since we really want to share the achievements that our cities accomplish. Darwin, Australia was the first city council to declare a climate emergency. And since then, we have over 2,000 councils that have done similarly, 500 of which are ICLEI members. And then Dunedin, New Zealand was the first city to divest from fossil fuels. And since then, hundreds have also continued to follow suit. And we know that's a major focus of this COP as well. And since then, ICLEI has also signed on to the 100% renewables resolution, as well as the 24/7 carbon energy pact as well. And then Durban, South Africa, pioneered the proposal for an IPCC agenda focused on cities and climate research. And since we've really used that as an acceleration point to spotlight cities and regions and continue reporting, continue focus on IPCC reporting, including some contributions to the 7th assessment report. Then one big project that we're involved in and funded by the Jeff is called Urban Shift, which focus on integrated urbanization in both the Jeff 6, 7, and 8 cycles. And you can see some of the partners that we're working with across the globe. We're leading the work in India. And then moving on to the Talanoa dialogues, these really facilitated ways for over 60 nations to cement more ambitious climate plans going into the next COP with direct engagement from 15 countries that are involved within ICLEI. And then moving into the Glasgow COP, we were a heavy advocate for the induction of language around multi-level, which we're also continuing to seek at this year's COP in the Glasgow Climate Pact. And this really led the way through leadership from Scotland around the stocktake for climate emergency, which we were able to facilitate local inputs into the global stocktake in lots of countries and regions, leading up in inputs into this COP process. And then most recently, just last year, not too distant memory serves that we launched Surge as a follow-up to the first urbanization and climate ministers, and have been working closely with UN Habitat to make that a reality. And those conversations continue through this COP as well. So that's a little bit about the work that we've been doing since 2015 in the Paris Agreement. We know that this is a landmark year. We're excited about the work that we've done hand in hand with our members. And now I would like to invite Rohit up to introduce our panel and start the discussion for you to learn a little bit more about the front lines that are happening in cities and regions, the exciting transformative work that our cities or regions are doing around our key areas, climate justice, integrated climate change, and 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisa, for this nice introduction and talking about the beautiful work that is happening in this space. For this panel discussion, I wanted to dive down a bit more deeper and see what the wonderful cities are working around the world. We all know that we are in a very critical situation with GHG emissions rising above the rooftop, localities, communities being affected in different parts of the world, irrespective of how much GHG emissions they have contributed. We can see the impacts of climate crisis, climate change through droughts, wildfires, forest fires, and so on. Vulnerabilities, people are getting affected, and to a lot of climate solutions, energy is at the core of the solutions. We have seen that cities, subnational governments are leading the local action, leading the subnationals at the front line. We have also seen that when navigating the complex landscape of intersecting challenges and vulnerabilities in our cities and regions, subnational governments, critical leaders in tackling local challenges. This is also influenced by intricate global geopolitical dynamics, which can impact on many aspects of food, energy security, and so on. Stepping up the collective climate and energy action locally not only addresses local priorities, but also provides positive impacts nationally as well as globally. For this, we do need effective action, coordination, and cooperation across multiple levels of governments, meaning whole of the government, and engaging with all stakeholders, meaning whole of the society. At the right time and in an appropriate manner is the key to respectfully take into account people, place, and context when planning and implementing effective solutions. For this, today, we want to learn from a few pioneering cities who are working at local level and making the change happen and the action on the ground. For this, I have a fantastic panel of mayors with us today. May I first introduce Ms. Katrin Sternfeld-Jammeh, Mayor of Malmö, Sweden, and first Vice President of ICLEI Global Executive Committee. Please, if you could take the seat. Next, we have Mayor Pablo Corcelani, Mayor of Perez from Argentina. Sir, please. And last but not the least, we have Mayor Jaime Pumarejo, Mayor of Barranquilla, Colombia. So please. So maybe I stand here or could be, but I need. Yeah, I think it's better. Okay. Thank you very much. We want to know from you all the actions, the wonderful work that you're doing in your cities and the change that you're bringing over. So if I may first start with you, Mayor Jammeh, the question that I would like to ask to you is, what are you most proud of as an achievement under your leadership in addressing the just transition? What can others learn from the case of Malmo?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really glad to be part of this panel, and I think this discussion is really important. And I'm proud that the city of Malmö has been a front runner for a couple of decades, actually. We used to be an old industrial city, and when the shipyard industry started to face economical problem, we lost like 1,000 of jobs, and we decided to make our transformation with a very strong focus on green techniques, green solutions to create new green jobs. So we have been working with social and sustainability according to city planning for at least 2 decades. And which means that we are a fast-growing city, and when we plan new city districts, we make sure that we have the infrastructure in place from the very beginning, according to like waste management, energy solutions, mobility solutions, and so on. And then a couple of years ago, or when the UN launched the SDGs, we decided to put the SDGs in the very center of all our steering system that we got. So that's a question for all our departments to work with to fulfill the SDGs. And we realized when we build new city districts, it's I would say that's easier than to refurb the already existing part of the cities. When we know that we have to refurb, we have to make sure that we have solutions that cost quite a lot of investment, and we know that our inhabitants can't really pay for that investment. So we realized we have to work with a different perspective at the very same time. And I think that's the thing that's real different, that we work as hard with the social sustainability perspective as the green perspective. And that's something we see today that we have to work with very intertwined. So we start to develop like to be able to, we have accelerated our action and our ambitions. We decided to be a climate neutral city by 2030, and that means quite a lot. So we started to create climate contract together with business sector and different actors within the city. And today I think we have at least 200 different climate contract within the business sector. And that's an important part to make the transformation. We need to work really close together. So I think that to engage the civil society, the business sector with a strong focus on all the SDGs and to connect the environmental questions with the affordable ones. Today we work with a clear insight that you can't make a city sustainable if it's not affordable for the citizens to live there. And since, well, I meet mayors from all over the world, I realize if it's in like Latin America, US, Europe, we are all struggling to make this kind of investment without like forcing our residents out of the city center. And that's a huge challenge. And then lastly, we are also working hard to find new systems or new ways to finance this kind of investments together with the business sector. And we are trying to be a strong voice against the national level in a more ambitious way today than maybe before. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Those are very ambitious plans with climate neutrality by 2030. I also know Malmo has 100% renewables commitment by 2030. That means a lot of green jobs, a lot of skills and training. So the question of Justin, sorry.
May I just add something? I forgot maybe the most important part. Since we had the ICLE World Congress in Malmö 2021 and 2022, due to the pandemic, we split it in 2 parts. But at that time, according to what I just said, to work with the green transformation with a very clear perspective to make the development with a strong focus on equity and to make it sure that we work with like our inhabitants' interest in the center. We launched the Malmö Commitment. And I'm really happy to say that we had like a couple of front runners signing up for this commitment already when back in Malmö. And today we have some new signers and I'm really happy. So Malmö Commitment is a way of showcasing best practices, but also to make sure that we measure with smart indicators with a focus on the social side as well. And then we make sure that we are following up, so we make sure that we have a progress. So I'm really happy to see that this commitment is growing. And I really hope that all of you who are like city leaders, mayors, decide to be part of this network and that you are joining us. I think you can see the code over there. So and over there, which makes it easy to sign. So thank you.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Let me move to Mayor Corsellini. Mayor Corsellini, we know the city of Perez is working very hard for renewables, energy transition, with energy efficiency and so on, and also trying to see how the province of Santa Fe is setting the examples and how city of Perez can look at perhaps being ambitious and look at 100% renewables commitment and so on. Can you tell me are you interested in stepping up this local renewable energy generation and use, and also to help address the energy security and the local job creation?
Bien, bueno, buenos días. En principio, agradecer la invitación. Realmente celebro que en esta COP se contemple los gobiernos locales, porque realmente somos la primer línea de respuesta que trabajamos con la comunidad, donde se tienen que dar, como bien decía recién la compañera, la planificación y la respuesta inmediata de los trabajos que tenemos que llevar hacia adelante y en conjunto con una agenda público-privada que sea inteligente y con indicadores directos. La verdad que de nuestra ciudad venimos desde el 2015 y me voy a hacer de una partecita de la pregunta que le hizo, que es de qué uno se siente orgulloso, ¿no? Digo, como intendente del 2015 que venimos sosteniendo la agenda ambiental y hemos puesto la prioridad en el sostenimiento de la política pública. Nuestra ciudad es una ciudad del área metropolitana del Gran Rosario, donde la vulnerabilidad social es uno de los indicadores a trabajar, con lo cual el ser, la persona, está en el eje central de las políticas públicas que llevamos adelante. Y las que tienen que ver y se reflejan con la agenda de trabajo que traemos en función de las mejoras ambientales son claves. Venimos trabajando en la generación de trabajos verdes, de empleos verdes en la ciudad, realmente con unos indicadores muy importantes. Es una ciudad industrial con una matriz productiva muy fuerte, 162 pymes tiene nuestra ciudad, empresas pequeñas, las cuales nos han indicado en nuestro inventario de gases de efecto invernadero que hemos realizado, que hemos planificado, que el 61% de la matriz energética es el desafío que tenemos para poder mejorar hacia adelante como gestión. Y esta mirada de lo público, de lo privado, esta agenda inteligente que necesitamos llevar adelante sin lugar a dudas, la tiene que marcar el gobierno local, la tiene que marcar el Estado, pero la tiene que hacer con acuerdos que sean inteligentes, que sean acuerdos estratégicos, que sean posibles de medir y sobre todo de concretar. Venimos desde el gobierno generando acciones como poder invertir en paneles solares en edificios públicos, hacer la transición del 100% de todo lo que es el alumbrado público de calle a luces LED para poder empezar a mejorar digamos, un indicador, pero sin lugar a dudas que la matriz clave está dada en el sector productivo. Por eso es que junto a ICLEI estamos marcando esa hoja de ruta que tenemos que cumplimentar junto con el privado, haciéndolo parte para poder llegar a lo que es el carbono neutro en los próximos años en nuestra ciudad.
Thank you very much. That's really ambitious and is something that I think all the other Argentine cities would be looking at, and how Perez sets the example forward with 100% renewables and creating green jobs, so on. Let me go next to Mayor Pumarion. I wanted to bring, Mayor, these three elements that has been highlighted here. Also, Alisa in her presentation reflected upon that. Key pillars, if I may put it like that: just transition accompanied by, let's say, 100% renewables, the expansion of renewables into the energy system, and integrated climate action, bringing in also the biodiversity and the mix of energy nature balance. I understand that in your city, you're also working a lot with energy and biodiversity and so on. Could you tell us what is going on in the city and how you are taking these impactful actions?
I think, as we've been trying to say, and we've said it, I think, in a couple of forums during my tenure, and with the help of ICLEI and opening up these spaces, especially in the biodiversity COP last year. I think Latin America has something to say, and it's very different from what developed nations are saying. If you think about Colombia, we are 0.06% of global emissions. We're 50 million people, and we emit 1.6 tons of CO2 a year. That's 10% of what an American emits. So it takes 10 Colombians for every American. So our commitment to climate change is a different one. Our commitment has to be to grow sustainably. So when we have economic development, we don't do it in a bad way. And then we have to learn from what Europe is doing, which is at the forefront of that climate change or climate mitigation. But on the other hand, we have to do something that the world did very wrong, is we have to preserve our biodiversity and make it a source of economic development, of jobs, and of science. Once again, Colombia is the place where the natural science was, in a way, invented by Humboldt more than 220 years ago. Then that came into the National Revolution that garnered Darwin, that garnered the works of Emerson and many other people. And then came the last century, which was the synthetic century, or the petrochemical century. Now we're coming back to nature. So that gives us a huge opportunity in Colombia and in mega diverse areas, because now is our time once again. So we are talking about renewable energies, not because we have to, not because we're going to make a dent in the CO2 emissions, but to be honest, because it's good business and it helps us in the future. So, for example, every day we have in Colombia more extreme climate. That means stronger heat waves and stronger wind throughout the year. So we have 9 to 13 meters per second of wind in our coast. That means with the help of Copenhagen infrastructure partners, we're building a 350 megawatt offshore wind project. That means that it is bankable and financeable by the private sector to make all of our city infrastructure. That means our hospitals, our schools, our public buildings, our sports facilities, 300 buildings, we're all putting solar panels on them. And if you take that and combine it with Colombia's 70% hydroelectric power grid, that means that in a few years, we're going to be able to say that we are 100% renewable. But we're not doing it as our goal. It's just good business to do it. And we know that once we start bringing the industries of the world, we can say, you're going to have renewable energy. So it's a plus, but it's not what we believe that we have to do in order to save our planet. We believe our future is to actually preserve nature. And that's why we're changing the most important thing we can change, and it's the minds of our citizens. We've created, for example, 1,000-hectare eco park. That's a mangrove forest. It's a wetland. It's an area for preservation, for bird observation, for ecotourism. And that is showing our citizens that they can actually make a living off of this, that this can bring a quality of life, an economic opportunity, and that there is a future there. We're building, for example, a small 30-hectare forest, but it's a dry tropical forest. It's one of the most endangered types of forests in Colombia and South America, but it's not sexy as the rainforest and the Amazon. So it gets passed on. But we're trying to make a small forest so that people can interact with it and learn that this is important in our ecosystems, and that preserving that also preserves mangroves, because that's I would say how do you say, the cuenca, the basin for the mangrove area. So in a sense, I think that from South America to the rest of the world, and from Colombia, such a mega diverse area, what we're trying to say is, first, our role is a different one, and very important, we need to find ways to sustainably finance adaptation and biodiversity. And just to close off, and I know I'm talking a lot. 10 years ago, we had the worst rain season in our history. We had 30,000 families affected by it. 1 year ago, or I guess a couple of months ago, we had now the worst rain season in history. So 10 years passed, and now we just had the worst flooding and rain season in history. Only 3,000 families were affected. So we went from 30,000 to 3,000. What happened? We started adapting through local financing, through local government. So we did that change. The national government did not do it. Nobody came from outer space or from the framework of the United Nations to give us the money or to change it. We did it ourselves. Local financing, local engineering, and local design, and work with communities. So it can be done. We don't need a lot of handouts. We just need proper financing, and we need a seat at the table, because it's not trickling down to cities. And as Pablo said, we are on the front lines, and if they gave us the money, the tools, and the resources, we would have figured this out a long time ago, and climate change would not be an issue anymore.
Thank you very much. Those are fantastic, very vital points that you mentioned. And I take my segue from that last point that you mentioned about that the city, you did it all on your own, and national government you mentioned. And that's one question that I have, and that is to the panel. For national governments, what do you see as the most essential action from your national government is taking to support local action? And while answering that, please do add a challenge that you foresee now. And what is missing at that national level in your country? Do you have a specific call to your national government to set up its support for local action? And this is open, anybody can go first.
Bueno, arranco. Bueno, en nuestro país estamos en una transición de gobierno. Próximos días asume un nuevo presidente, y lo primero, digamos, el primer llamado de atención es que entienda o comprenda que el cambio climático existe y es una realidad, ¿no? Venimos de un proceso electoral en donde se manifestaba que el cambio climático no existía, que era mentira. Con lo cual, el primer llamado de atención es entender que existe, que es real, que el mundo está discutiendo y poniendo sobre la mesa el tema en la agenda mundial. Segundo, venimos con un acompañamiento desde hace tiempo en materia de movilidad sustentable, pudimos construir 25 kilómetros de red de vía segura, con lo cual nos hace una de las ciudades de la Argentina con mayor kilómetros de ciclovía y bicisenda por habitantes. Pudimos trabajar en función de la inversión del gobierno nacional para poder darle valor agregado al reciclado, generar lo que hablábamos antes, empleos verdes, pero sobre todo recuperar el 6% del residuo que genera mi ciudad, con lo cual un indicador que está medido y que nos pone un nuevo desafío hacia adelante. Pudimos avanzar, como contaba al principio, en inversiones para tecnología en edificios públicos, en alumbrados, en energías renovables, como es el alumbrado público. Pero sin lugar a dudas que necesitamos las materias, las herramientas legales, las leyes, que puedan ayudarnos a asociarnos de manera inteligente a los estados locales con el privado y sostener quizás algunos beneficios tributarios para poder hacer la inversión y lograr ese recambio de la matriz en renovable que estamos buscando en la ciudad. Creo que ahí hay dos cuestiones que son claves. Insisto, que el gobierno que entrante, digamos, que asume el 10 de diciembre, entienda que el cambio climático es una realidad y que hay que trabajar y seguir trabajando en función de esto. Y sobre todo después el acompañamiento para garantizar el marco legal en los acuerdos públicos privados que necesitamos para sostener las inversiones necesarias en materia de renovables.
Okay, I would say we face at the moment a situation, well, I think cities globally face, and that's that we have actually at the moment are having a government like stepping down a little. I'm used to represent a country with really, really high ambitions. And I would say that our government still say that they have high ambitions, but they withdraw a little bit from the global engagement. And they also just recently changed the legislation in a way that will, I'm afraid, increase our greenhouse gas emissions like 10% in Malmö, which make our work even harder. We are really determined to be successful when it comes to become a climate neutral city. But if you have a government who support your ambitions, or if you have a government like, well, withdrawing their engagement, that's a huge difference. I saw, for example, a couple of years ago, we had a government that realized that you have to take action on the local level. When the Swedish government a couple of years ago made their first local review on the SDGs in the UN, I think they were the first country to bring members from the local level to be part of the Swedish delegation. And I can't really see that kind of commitment today. And on a more like national level, I can see that also the national level makes the cities pay a bigger share of national investments when it comes to infrastructure and so on. And we know that the cities has like 70% of the greenhouse gas emission to work with, but we just have like 15% or less from the global funding. So if our government withdraw, it makes it much harder for us. So that's a challenge at the moment. But then still, I feel we have lots of businesses, lots of actors that actually believe in what you were saying, that it's also good business to make sure that you are in the front line when it comes to new technical solutions and so on. So, well, we will keep on with a very strong focus at local level. Thanks.
Okay, so I guess for us in Colombia, and it's something that happens in Argentina as well, we have a barrier because a lot of the way cities get financed has to do or has a threshold that is not trickling down. So investment is for example, from the MDBs, from the development banks, from these climate funds are staying at the sovereign level, at the national level, but the responsibility and the change needs to happen at the local level. So adaptation doesn't have any financing. And it takes too long. It takes 5, 6, 4 years to get a project going. And we're mayors for 4 years. So then they blame us, you're too short-sighted. We say, well, we only have 4 years. We have to change things quickly. So what we need, and there is a global commission on urban financing that ICLE is on, we are on. And what it's trying to do is, and the framework is trying to address is, how do we get more money to cities? Because if we give cities money, they're going to make a difference. So I think that's what we need to tell governments. And I have one point, for example, we need to start asking governments to hand out blanket sovereign guarantees. Because today, you need to ask a government to give you a sovereign guarantee for a credit line, and you need to be nice to the president. You need to be nice to the Minister of Treasury. You need to make sure that they like you. If they don't, they won't give it to you. And they may give it to you, and then they may push the ball forever, and if there will be no disbursement. If we can get these governments and shame them into action to give blanket sovereign guarantees to institutions like funds or the MDBs, then through technical analysis, they can assess which region or subnational government needs that credit, and they can give it to them after that sovereign guarantee has been emitted, not to a particular region or city, but to an MDB so that they can be then dispersed or used in a more technical manner.
Thank you very much. Those points from all three of you were very important and vital, highlighting the things that are actually happening on the ground between the national government and the local government. The takeaway that I have today and everybody here is the points that you raised on finance, especially for cities, local finance, new financial or innovative financial instruments and mechanisms are needed. Business models for renewables, you said it's good for business, maybe we should make it sexy for business. The thing that we see that, and I believe you've shown everybody by showcasing the work that you're doing, is that cities are, subnational governments are doing it on their own as well. To a certain extent, national governments not doing it doesn't stop us from taking climate action, but we do need their support. We want to push them so that the rapid transition can happen. So definitely it cannot be that they do not act on what the cities and subnational governments need. Before I give over to Elisa to conclude, please give me a round of applause for our fantastic panelists, the mayors who have proven what they are doing on cities. Amazing work, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
All right, so just to close this session, we wanted to share some ways that you can get more engaged with our work within ICLE. For example, if you're not already a member and you're inspired by the remarks that you heard today and want to get connected to this network and with the expertise and leadership of ICLEI, we ask that you consider joining our network. You can learn more about it on our website here. Next slide, please. We talked a little bit about the Green Climate Cities program. All of our members are looking to be a part of this program. If you want to get more engaged, learn more about this iterative process, you can contact us at the Carbon Center to learn more about and get more deeply engaged in that process. TAP, you learned a bit about the projects that we've already been funded. We have a upcoming deadline of December 15th to apply for new projects, more funding to be considered with technical support offered by our innovative finance team at the World Secretariat. Feel free to learn more at our TAP website and apply by the December 15th deadline. We launched a City Academy, an online course, 8 different topics at our India Forum a few months ago. This is a free course that you can access online on the Urban Shift website. Subjects like circularity, as well as innovative finance, and it's self-paced and a really great resource for a way for mayors, but also their technical staffs to get more information around these areas of sustainability as well. Next slide, please. Our 100% renewable energy cities and regions. You can learn more about that and the work that Rohit's team is doing on our sustainable energy website as well. And a special thanks to our major donors that is funding our climate work within the World Secretariat, which is the GEF, the Government Federal Ministry of Development, as well as Global Covenant of Mayors. We thank them for support and look for continued support from funders into the future. And with that, we'd like to thank you for your time and energy today. I thank our ICLEI members and mayors for joining us and Rohit for moderating. And we wish for all the COP28 negotiators success in striking a sustainable Earth future deal